Hotelier on the Grill. This is Hotelier on the Grill, and we're here today with the ex-general manager of the Landmark Hotel on Sukhumvit in Bangkok, Thailand, Mr. Frank Clovyn. Good morning.
Good morning.
And it's indeed an honor to be interviewing you here today. Rather than me saying a lot, could you just give yourself a brief introduction, maybe in a couple of sentences of who you are, and then we'll dig deeper through our questions.
I do. First of all, good morning. Happy to be here. I'm quite excited, actually. Well, I'm Frank Clovyn, Belgian, born in Antwerp many moons ago, 1956. Started my career really as a chef, moved on to F&B director, moved on to resident manager, hotel manager, and last general manager. So that's in brief what I've done. I've went through a lot of ups and downs, and I guess later throughout your questions we'll be able to unravel a bit more on that.
Fantastic. And just before we jump into the interview too, if we've done the editing down properly, you're probably seeing now scrolling before your eyes some wonderful images and pages taken out of a book that was made in your honor upon your retirement from the hotel. That's correct?
That's absolutely right. And these guys, they made a hell of a job out of it. And, you know, there's a lot of nostalgia in there and looking back at 15 years. So occasionally when I flip through the book, I go, oh my God, you know, that was a great time. And just recently I met a couple of the sons of the owners and it's like, come Frank, we really miss you. And I mean, until today, that's now 2 years later, I was in the hotel last week and, you know, the staff walks up to you and says, hi boss, how are you? Well, I'm not your boss anymore, but boss, you will never forget you, we miss you. We still miss you, so that's quite amazing.
Oh, it is.
That's really...
And looking at these pictures, I think you're going to be able to enjoy them as we're going through this interview, but it looks like you definitely made your impact. So, straight into the questions. We have 12 questions, standard questions with Hotelier on the Grill, and these questions are designed to dig deeper into who you are and find out who you are as a hotelier. Are you ready?
Ready for it, yeah.
Okay, so the first question, where did you cut your teeth in the hotel industry?
Well, that was very funny. I did hotel school in Antwerp, and then my first job actually was a small restaurant, some Michelin stars, some not. And then at some stage I said to myself, that doesn't seem to be fulfilling me. I want to do something else. And I then decided to go and apply at a hotel. And that was a European chain. I'm not sure if they exist anymore. That was called Crest Hotel. They were an English chain, and they had a hotel in Antwerp. I started there, and shortly after my arrival there, I started at really the bottom. I was a chef de partie in the kitchen. They hired an executive chef that was a very interesting character. And this guy came to the hotel, had worked for Marriott worldwide as a German citizen, and we hit it off pretty well. Now he was very direct. He was different to all the people I had known before, and I, believe it or not, that was the first time that we're talking now 1976, 77. The first time I've heard of the concept food cost. Until such time in the hotel schools in Belgium, nobody talked about food cost. As long as the food was good, life was good. That was the thing. So that was an eye-opener for us. Like, we need to be profitable also in this business, because in these days, you know, you'd open the door of a restaurant, a hotel, and everything was just full because there was nothing else. So a couple of months later, this fellow told me, Frank, you have too much talent to be sitting here. I really need you to go and open your eyes. I mean, look at my career. And he kept on referring to himself. He'd been in the Caribbean, he'd been in Asia, he'd been in America, he'd been everywhere. And his stories were like really like, oh my God, you know, that's interesting.
Wow. So well, that might bring us into our next question. When was your first big break?
Well, referring back to this guy, what was my first big break? that particular man pushed me to go and do something else. He says, you should go to, and you know, Belgium that time, we were a small village, really. We had, I think, 9 million people. And to go from Antwerp to Brussels was like a big deal. That was like changing countries because they spoke another language. And he says, go to Brussels. And I then wrote to 3 hotels. Hyatt, Hilton, Sheraton. They all invited me for an interview, and they all offered me jobs. Wow. So now I'm sat there with 3 hotels, 3 jobs, and you know I didn't really know that stage. Hyatt, Hilton, Sheraton. It was really, there were different terms for us. I mean, you know, and I don't know why, but I think I liked the HR director the most probably. Maybe the size of the hotel. I picked Sheraton Brussels. And that was again interesting because when I started there as a sous chef. Yeah. And the GM, again a German, he was an interesting character. Old school, screaming, ranting, raving, but actually a very nice man. Very personable. And he'd come and talk to me, and after a couple of months he says, I think you should move on. I think you have the talent to move on.
Do you remember his name?
Yeah, Carl Fuster. How can you I forget these kind of people. You don't forget these characters in your life. There's been really 3 that have been characters. But Carl Fuster, he said, I'm going to look for something for you. Then one day he told me, I've got a job for you in Israel. Executive chef at the Sheraton in Jerusalem. And I went like, Israel? Bombs? Camels? I said, no. I want to go and check it out first. And then guess what? Fair enough. It was funny. Got to Israel and found normal people. I mean, not because we in Antwerp, there's a big Jewish community in Antwerp, very big. But they're all Hasidic. So they're all wearing the big hats and the funny hairstyle, and I thought that's what Israel is like. But I actually, having arrived there, I felt, oh my God, that's interesting. That these are different people. So I decided to accept that job, and that was actually, I guess, the real breakthrough. That's really what offset my career. But it was all in a very, very, very short time limit, because I'm talking now 80, 79, 80, 81, 82, 83. In 82 I was in Israel.
Wow.
That was it.
So coming back to looking at your whole experience, why were you able to make it to where you did make it? Now you've retired from there where perhaps others have failed. May I just say something on that retirement thing? I wish I was retired. I'm actually working harder today than I was ever in the past, in the last 25 years. But I'm kind of retired, but not really. But how did I make it? Very simple. Hard work, honest hard work, no politics. Luckily that I had many of the bosses that I had that believed in me, that mentored me, that pushed me on. And I believe one of the most important things is having very strong beliefs and very strict and strong values. That's really how I believe that I made it. And I think this leads a bit into the next question. You mentioned in your introduction that you've had many, ups and downs. So could you tell us about one of the darkest moments in your career?
Yeah, there are some. And I want to refer here on 2 particular incidents. One incident, and I'm not going to call names, if that's okay with you, or locations, because these people may still be in the industry. But one time I'm in a meeting, and it's a very big hotel, and my general manager was a very good person. He was an excellent general manager. He also was awarded GM of the Year at that time for the China region. for the chain. And there was a vice president operations in that room, and there was the F&B director, the financial controller, the director of sales and marketing, and myself in that room, and we were presenting the annual budget for the year to come. And there is this vice president operations sitting in front of all these people, and he said to my boss, Mr. So-and-so, if you're not gonna make budget next year, it is time for you to look for a new job. And at that very stage, I was junior to Dan, my GM, and I said to him, to that vice president, I said, excuse me, sir, I do believe that you're out of line. I do believe that's not something you're supposed to say in this kind of format. And I do believe I do not want to sit in this meeting any longer. So that was one very dark moment. Mm-hmm. That actually has never left me. Because I found it so unprofessional at that very stage and so uncalled for. The second incident is really an incident that confirmed to me that my place was not in corporate hotels. Mm. I was in a Dan general managers meeting in Singapore for a big hotel chain, and the VP Human Resources walks up to me, and at that stage I was wearing a bit of a designer kind of stubble, a 4, 5, 6 day beard, but very trimmed, very clean, very neat, and he just looks at me and he just said to me, do you really believe that with this you're gonna bring it very far in this organization? Mm-hmm. And I was taking a little bit aback, but I had a very quick comeback, and I just told him, listen, mate, I believe if that's what's gonna make or break me in your organization, I believe I am wasting my time. Now I'm gonna continue enjoying my cocktail, have a nice life. And that's the time I decided, enough. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't like that anymore. That was the second incident in the same year, in the same organization. And I said, if that's the way you people run this organization, what have I got to lose here? What have I got to do here?
So how did you get through that?
In what sense?
How did you get through it, or what was your decision after that?
I came back home from that meeting, and I decided to myself, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm going to work with nice people, not people that judge you on these kind of silly things. I do not want to do that. So I quit. I quit. I left.
So that's how you got through it.
And I joined, that's how I got through it. And I joined a freestanding organization. Not the Landmark, something in between.
Right.
As a matter of fact, I was the GM of the Imperial Queen's Park after that, which was like a village, 1,400 rooms, right. Similar number of staff. That was an interesting experience. So, yeah, that's how I got through it.
It's still one of the biggest hotels in Bangkok.
It is the biggest hotel in Bangkok.
Yeah. Wow. So coming back to you and just your whole way of living, of working, what drives you?
What drives me, and that's not in order of importance. Results. Results speak for themselves. I mean, results, being ahead of the game, trying harder, consistently and constantly challenge the status quo, working with good people, see these people grow, see how successful they can be on their own. And you know what? I need to tell you something. I'm not an easy boss. Most people are going to tell you frank stuff, but very fair, and he listens. So, and the biggest reward for me is from your team members, to see their failures, to see their successes, and then the recognition you get back from them. You know, after they realize you're tough, but you're actually a nice guy about it, but you don't put up with incompetence, so to speak.
So how much of a role did you play in actually recruiting your own team? Was it you or the HR department?
You know what? At some stage, I had big challenges with HR departments in my life, because in Asia, okay, they majority of them is in Asia. They all want to hire people that are highly educated, have university degrees, and blah blah blah. And I'm a person that looks for talent. I want to see. Actually, I can judge a person on the way he or she walks. You know, when people walk with a purpose, the head is up, the shoulders are back, you see there's potential. And my challenge with HR people throughout my career has been, get me people that are qualified for the job, that have the spark in their eyes, that have the potential to grow, that want to succeed in their life, and I don't care about their education.
Right.
And maybe later I can tell you a couple of success stories of people that we picked up, and they are today doing very well. But that's where I very strongly believe in, and that's helped me throughout my career, to be honest with you.
Wow. And I'm sure those people would have considered you as a mentor. How about you, Frank? Do you have a mentor? And if so, who and why?
There's been several mentors in throughout my career. That first one, of course, I believe still until today, he's been the offset of my career. That's a chef in a hotel in Antwerp who says, Frank, you need to move on. Right? You just need to move. Do it. I don't want to get rid of you. Do not misunderstand me. But you need to move on. You have talent. You want to do that. So that was him. That was the first one. And then the other one was the guy in Jerusalem who picked me up and actually got me from Sheraton to work for Hyatt. Hyatt was opening a hotel there, and he was a typical Swiss aristocrat. But what a great person, what a great general manager, very confident. So I didn't have that issue which I had with some of my bosses in the past, that they felt inferior to me and uncomfortable, and thus resulting in jealousy and stopping your career because you're being a threat. I've had that. I have my fair share of that, I can promise you. Because somehow I can help my personality. I can help my posture.
Right.
I can help it. I walk into a room and many times the room stops and people look up. I've had situations where I was standing in the lobby of a big hotel in Bangkok and Lee Kuan Yew rocked up there. We were waiting for him. And my boss was standing there, who happened to be a bit shorter than I was and maybe a less imposing kind of person. And Lee Kuan Yew walked in and he came out with his hand stretched out to me, and I had to kind of back off and show he's the man. He talked to him.
The boss.
So these are very unpleasant moments, but they happen.
Right.
You know, and I've had a few of these, unfortunately.
Wow. So could you tell us about an experience in your career that's really made you proud?
There's been several of these. One of them was I left this first hotel where I was GM, and for some reason, people tend to realize or tend to see my value only when I left, because I don't kind of blow my own horn. I'm actually quite quiet and just do my job and get on with it. But that particular hotel, a couple of years later, I've heard, well, Frank was the best GM we've ever had in this hotel. And then the next moment, which really made me proud, that was something we made reference to earlier. There was I had this trick. I've had this thing where we had door girls. I was at the Landmark actually, and I said, you know, to HR, here's what I want you to do. I want you to find me people that have the looks, that want to work, but that are underprivileged. I don't care whether they studied or not. As long as they have the spark in their eyes, as long as they have the personalities, I want them to stand in this uniform, be proud to wear this uniform, be proud to work in the hotel, and then we'll see how we go. And I said, I would like to make also for them a career path, if we can possibly do it. Like 6 months on the door, then stick them in F&B, stick them in Rogues Division, and guess what? Today, some of these people are duty managers in hotels, in international hotels. There's one that's assistant front office manager, and there's one that's front office manager. Now that makes me proud.
From being just a girl on the door.
That made my day, because that's my contribution to the society, that's my contribution to country, but that really made me very proud in my achievement, really. Not me, it's their achievement, but I given them the chance, they took the chance, and they run with it. So yeah, that's really...
That's fantastic. And how about... what's the best, this is our ninth question here, what's the best advice that you could give somebody looking to be a successful GM?
Have you got a couple of minutes now to sit down and listen? Because there's a bit of advice I've had.
We would love to hear that.
I think the number one advice, and again, that's not in order of importance, but I've noted down a couple of things, and one of them is lead by example. Always lead by example, you know. That's the best advice I could give anybody. Then, be consistently on the outlook for change and improvement of your people and your product. Just don't sit still. Don't ever sit still. Just look, what can I do better, where, you know. Work on yourself. Don't think you're the man, because you're never the man. Just reflect. What can I do better? Then, I am a very firm believer in the better talent, the better people, the better qualifications of people I hire and can surround myself with, I make them successful, make my life easier, and we're much better off. So get the best people you can get and surround yourself with the strongest people you can find.
It's a win-win.
Don't forget the IBM principle. And the IBM, and be constantly aware of that. The IBM principle is very much, you know, remember IBM? They thought, I mean, people would refer at that stage to a computer that's an IBM. People wouldn't say PC. They were the most successful company in the history. Then they went to, Bill Gates came to them and said, well, I've got this little software. If I developed an IBM, said, nah, we don't do that. That's not. We are IBM. So the IBM principle, I mean, is really the moment you think you're being successful, then start preparing for your funeral. That's the IBM principle, and I've preached that all over again, and that's so true, and you need to be so careful of that. Then, be honest with yourself. Have strong values and very strong principles. Don't take yourself too serious.
Just on a quick, taking it off of that, what could you list, or just tell us one value or one principle that you would think?
Integrity.
Yeah.
Honesty. Straightforwardness. These, I think, are the key values here. Then, don't take yourself serious, ever. You know, have a great sense of humor. Laugh at yourself. Take an hour a day to reflect on life, yourself. Evaluate. Prioritize.
Yeah, that's very important.
Prioritize, so important. Communicate with all your colleagues,
Associates.
all your associates. Talk to them. The biggest thing I hate today is, and I've had a situation where I said I will ban internal emails. Do not send me any more emails. Do not dare to send emails to any of your colleagues. Pick up the phone, go and see them. Because that email thing has become, it's a great tool, but it's very antisocial. How long does it take you to write an email versus getting up from your desk, go to see your colleague in the room next door and just have a little chat? Have a coffee. Socialize. I mean, that email is, don't tell me I send you an email, because I don't accept that as an excuse. So that, communicate.
Need the human interaction.
You need the human interaction. Forget that email. Forget it. Use it where it's necessary, but certainly don't use it to cover your backside.
Right.
And so, what's the biggest mistake that you think a GM can make?
Be arrogant. Don't listen to his people. Have his head in different places where they don't belong to be.
Could you expand on that? It sounds like you're thinking of
I would say, so many, and certainly the younger generation GMs. First of all, we've come in a situation where there's been so many being built. So you have people in positions that are very young, inexperienced, and they don't have the on-the-field experience. They do not know how to communicate with their subordinates. They don't walk around the heart of the house. They don't go to see the housekeepers. They don't. I mean, you ask these people, do you know where your laundry department is? Well, they may even not find it. You know what I'm saying? Because they sit in their office, they are just detached.
Right.
I mean, they do their morning briefing. They give hard time to everybody in the morning briefing. Walk away and think that fixes the problem. Interaction. Talk to your people. Be with your people. Be there in need. Yeah. Make sure they're comfortable with talking to you. These are the most important parts for me.
Fantastic. Now, this is the final question in the official questions about your being a hotelier. If you weren't in the hotel industry, what's your ideal alternate career?
I'd be a captain on a merchant ship, sailing the oceans.
And were you ever heading in that direction before you got into hotels?
A thought crossed my mind to do the what they call it in Belgium. We have a university degree on just learning that, and then you start your way from first officer, second officer onto captain. And I did think about that, because in between the army and the hotel school, nobody will employ you. So I worked on the tugboat service we have an estuary coming off the sea into Antwerp, and I worked on the tugboats, and I really liked it. And I had some second thoughts, but then I was a chef, and these guys loved me cooking, so I got into that. But if I would maybe start all over again, I'd be a captain on a merchant ship. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, and so finally, and this is on a different line, on a different tangent from the other questions, but equally interesting. What app are you currently hooked on, or are you currently using, or has got your attention?
Well, if you bear with me, I've got a couple.
Yeah.
Basically, there's things I use as tools. Actually, one of them I use in preparation for this interview is a mind map app. Which has helped me in many projects. It's called Xmind. The other one is a to-do list app, and it's called Things, and it just keeps track of my life and things I need to do. And then there's Zinio, which I'm reading my magazines, and then there's Press Reader, which I use for newspapers. I download all the newspapers of all the places I've been, and then one more to stop is Navionics. That's what I use for sailing and boating and talking to people.
So you still do sailing?
I've got a boat and sail around in the Gulf of Thailand.
Fantastic. Yeah. So, wow, we have 5 apps there, everyone. We have the mind mapping app, Xmind. We have the to-do list, which is Things.
Yes.
We have Zinio, which is a magazine app.
Yes.
And then to also read press is your Press Reader, and then Navionics for when you're hitting the high seas. Thank you very much, Frank. It's been an honor. I'm sure that all our listeners out there and the people reading the transcript here, they've got a lot out of this interview. I know I have, and I hope that you have many more years before your official retirement.
Thank you.
And you'll be able to keep adding value to the industry. Thank you, Frank.
Great talking to you.
Hotelier on the Grill.